Hello and welcome you to my video lecture classes. I am your faculty Dipankar Ghosh. In my previous videos of production technology, we have discussed about various types of die casting. So, let us discuss some advantages and disadvantages of your die casting. So, let us discuss first about the advantages. By using die casting method, it is very high rate of production can be achieved. Closed dimensional tolerance of plus or minus 0.025 mm can be possible by this die casting process. Number 3, surface finish of 0.8 micron can be easily obtained by this die casting process. Very thin section of order of 0.50 mm can be easily cast by using this die casting process. Long die life is obtained, less floor space is also required if you compare it with your sand casting, because in sand casting we require we have to prepare the mold, we have to prepare the keep the pattern, we have to we require some floor space to provide for the strands. So in comparison to that, in die casting process the floor space is very minimum. Next advantage is unit cost is also minimum. Now let us discuss about some disadvantages of your die casting. So first of all, not economical for small runs. That means die casting can be used when it required a large scale of production. If you want to produce in small scale, then the cost of the product should be highly increases. So disadvantage number 2, only economical for non-ferrous alloys. It is a very sensible thing, because it is only economical, because the die have otherwise what's happened, if we are using a high ferrous material, then the problem or the difficulty what we face, that should be in the case of die are already stick together. Therefore we use die casting process for some non-ferrous like your aluminium, copper, zinc, like that. So and their alloys also. So heavy casting cannot be cast. That is another very important disadvantages. The casting of below 5 kg, we are proceed through this die casting process. Then number 4, cost of dies and die casting equipment is also high. To produce this die is also involve a lot of cost. And the last disadvantages is skilled worker needed for the operation. So these are all about your advantages and disadvantages of the die casting process. So let us discuss about another die casting process. Already in the die casting process, already we complete hot working process and your cold working process. So let us discuss about the third one, which is named as your centrifugal casting process. So first of all, what do you mean by centrifugal casting? In this centrifugal casting, molten metal is poured into the mold while they are rotating. The metal falling into the center of the mold at the axis of rotation and is thrown out by the centrifugal force under sufficient pressure towards the periphery. Various types of centrifugal casting are also available, which is discussed. So first of all, let us discuss about true centrifugal casting. If you go through this slide, then we can find that here we are having a motor, we are having a mold, here we are having here you can find a mold, and we are having a ladle. So in this ladle molten metal is we are pouring the molten metal here, and we are having a motor, so it can rotate the whole mold to its periphery. So when during this rotation of this mold, our molten metal is poured into here. So the heavy particles are remain sticked throughout this periphery. Therefore, we get an uniform strength throughout the cross section. So this employs molds of rotational symmetry made of steel. So here you can see also, here having rotational symmetry made of steel. This metal is poured, the metal is poured while the mold rotates at its axis. So here you can see in the figure also we are having a rotation. So here this motor we are using to rotate this mold, and during this rotation molten metal is poured into this mold. While rotating, the molten metal is carried to the walls of the cavity by centrifugal force. The metal then solidified, forming a hollow casting. You can see here after casting, this should be looks like that. The outside of this mold is water cooled to actuate solidification. So here the steps we are having in centrifugal casting. These are the steps we have to follow. First of all, mold preparation is required. The wall of a cylindrical mold are first coated with a refractory ceramic coating, which involves a few steps like application, rotation, drying and breaking. After that, once prepared and secured, the mold is rotated about its axis at a high speed. That means in between 300 to 3000 degree RPM, typically around 1000 RPM is required. Thereafter, next operation step is your pouring. Molten metal is poured directly into the rotating mold without the use of runners or a gating system. The centrifugal force drives the material towards the mold walls as the mold fills. Next operation is cooling. With all of the molten metal in the mold remains spinning as the metal cools. Cooling begins quickly at the mold walls and proceed inward. Then the next step is casting removal. After the casting has been cooled and solidified, the rotation is stopped and the casting can be removed. And the last operation, what it is having, that is the finishing operation. While centrifugal force drives the dense metal to the mold walls, any impurities or bubbles flow to the inner surface of the casting. As a result, secondary process such as machining, grinding or sandblasting are required to clean and smooth the inner diameter of the path. So here in the figure again, I want to convince you. So this is the mold which is having rotating. We are having a motor here. So it is a symmetrical diagram. Here we are having the ladle. With the help of this ladle, we collect the molten metal from the furnace and take into this. So here we are pouring that molten metal, and during that time this motor is driven this mold to rotate about near about 1000 degree RPM, so that during that revolving of this mold, the molten metal is entered into this die, and when it is totally filled with the molten metal, then we put out of the ladle from the molten metal pool. So thereafter, at that time also the mold is continuously rotated throughout the process. So what's happened due to that, when the metal we are having, in particularly in some cases we are having air cooling because it is a die casting process. When this mold is get filled, immediately we use water the outer surface of this mold so that it will quickly cool, and the rotation of this mold will be stopped. After that, we open this mold by the help of the ejector so that to get the casting. So this is all about your centrifugal casting, which is a part of your die casting. Thank you.